Hello everyone and welcome to ECidStation, first video for first-time users. When you open ECidStation for the first time, you should only see the default database. The default username is admin when you create an account, and the default password is also admin. In When you create new databases, there will be available within this list here for you to log in. But right now, we're going to concentrate on only logging into the default and showing you how to work on it. The first thing that you should do when you launch ECidStation and open the default database is to create a new database. But for many of you, the first things that you should do is change the language. Since I'm using a developer version, at this time you should see a splash screen. So right now when you log in, we're going to show you how to easily change or swap to a new language. Okay, in order to change the language, you go to System and Language, where you can actually change whatever language you prefer. You hit Apply, and all the menus and everything, you change it to the language of your preference. Bear in mind that we're going to be utilizing the English default language just to make it universal for all the other users that speak different languages. Of course, we will go more in deep about languages because in the application you can actually edit the language. You might have for example, in Spanish, you have different ways of saying different things, so you can rename your menus and your everything tailored to your specific region. At this time, I will switch back to the default language, which is English. When you create or open a new database, at the bottom of the application, you're going to be able to see the name of the database, the size of it, the number of records that it contains, and the username that is logged into the database at that specific moment. On the other side, you're going to see the number of tokens you currently have, and I'll explain that more about tokens. You should be seeing 0 when you launch for the first time, how many prints you got left, and the default printer when you print where it's gonna go. And the recommended next step for you to do is go to Database, Tools, create a new database. Here we use the template default, and we can call it any name we want. In this case, we want to call it demo. I'm gonna hit create, and it tells you that it has been created. Please remember to change the default admin password on it. The default password is admin, and the default username is admin. If you see now, we're working on the demo database. Just to see the structure of the database itself of the file, I can click on add record, and we're gonna see all the fields and everything that is set as default. But in order to modify these fields, let's say that I only have one design that is gonna have 3 fields, and that's all I want to capture, then I can edit the way that these items are displayed, like the text fields or the image containers. So I'm gonna go to configure, I'm gonna go to advanced settings. The first tab that you will see is the primary key tab, which in there you can change the number of characters that is specifically going to identify a unique record. And this is the labels tab, which allows you to enable or disable the fields that are going to be shown on the add record form. You can actually make them visible or technically invisible, like if you're not going to use it. Technically, that's the easier way to do. It's just you can, for example, click, and they're not going to show. In this case, for example, we're gonna go and um, enable only a few of them so that you understand the idea. Sorry. So we're gonna have the, let's say that we're not gonna call it batch, we're gonna call it, we can edit any of them, but we're gonna call it ID number, just to put that. You can name it anything. If you notice, this one doesn't have any type to change, and I'll explain that when we come back in a few seconds. But I just want to show you this one technically is the one that contain the number of the record itself. That's why you cannot change you know that field. When I hit OK, let's say we go to add record, you can only see that we're only having the fields that we enable. So right now we're gonna go back and per se, let's add one more, and let's say that this one I want to call it department. Okay, now there are two options or choices to select, and they are text or list. So let's say this means that the user is just going to be able to enter whatever text they want into it. But let's say that on department, I want to have a specific department to be listed. So that is easier for the user to just select from the list instead of typing them manually. So in this other tab on validation and population, we can pre-populate the fields. Like for example, if I want by default to say something on those fields, but later on I want to change it, I want to also force that. If you notice this is not empty, it's because the ID field is always required to be present on the database. First name, last name, I want to always have it, fill. And I also want to force the user to select that department no matter what. And choosing this selection force them to actually enter information on those fields. So here on the population option, I can say, for example, the department is gonna be the administration. I can add it. Let's say clergy. Let's say facilities. The accounting department. And customer support. Let's say you have those. You can sort it. You can place it ascending, descending. For example, I click here. Now you got AAC and all that. You can make them all uppercase, lowercase, cake selection. You can also pre-populate this content here. We got, like, for example, days of the week, departments, months, states, abbreviated, full names. If you want this list to go here, you only need to send it from here. You could also have a file. They have an Excel file or something like that. They have the list that you want to have if it's something too big, and you can import it from there. Let's hit OK. And if you see, when I hit OK, I go here to add record. And this red thing means it cannot be blank. If I want to save the record, it displays a dialog that they cannot be empty and they need to be filled with data. So now I can go, for example, and say, I'm going to put my name and that, and then I can type at the department if I want, uh, you know. But if I do not want to type, um, and I want just something of this only, for example, accounting, I can go. Let's close this thing. It's not open. Let's go to configure. Okay. Validation slash population, and then click on the lock check mark. So there is nothing that can be added to that, except for the ones that are there. The other thing that we can do, this is a population because it's as a list here. If on text files, I can actually validate. Like for example, let's make something crazy, but I want the first name to be, let's say, all uppercase, or I want to capitalize letters on name or something like that by default. But let's say for the sake of this sample that you want to, validate and make it uppercase. And the other one, let's say that I want to have it each character uppercase, let's say, and I hit OK. If you notice, these colors change it because it means that they're activated. If you want to deactivate it, just simply go there and say no validation. Okay, but this time I'm gonna cancel, hit OK. Okay, now if I go to add record, even that I am typing like upper and lower cases or whatever, when I hit tab to move to the next one, it will be auto validated, and then I'm gonna put the other one, and if you see it validated there. And if you see this field, I cannot type, so I can only go and select whatever department I want, but I cannot type anything on it. That's why the lock was before. Here, it's a field that is just for comments, so you can add whatever you want to say, something internally. I can type additional information that is not necessarily going to be printed. I also have the signature, and this will be for fingerprinting. In this case, they're not active, and what I can do is I can go back again, configuration, advanced settings, and then on here, I was trying to see if I'm missing something. You can change the font, you can change and arrange the cases if you want it. You can disable all, enable whatever you want just to make it easier. Same with here, you can enable it or all. We'll come back to the print cost and the products list. But here in other, you can actually have the images if you want to capture picture, if you want to capture a fingerprint or some other type of picture, you can add it here. And the third one is a signature. You can enable, disable. Which ones do you want them to show or not show on the add record, on the capture fields. Here we got different type of interfaces. We're gonna explain briefly some of them. or all of them, but very briefly. But you can navigate and try each one of them. These are the ways, the folds that we have created a small interface for the ad record, for badges, labels, products, and attendance. On this section, you can change the database identification area. Just in case you want a title, you want a text, you want something, we'll come back and I'll show you what that does. Printing is by default like auto resolution, but if you want to force a type of resolution, you can do it there. The language, is usually standard for the printing. In some other printers, we have a different language, uh, like PCL and stuff like that. Uh, but by default, this works in most of the printers. The backup options is because the database, you can have sequential backups, and you can say how many do you want them to be saved at the same, at any given time. So, for example, on the demo database, we will have three backups, and the third one replace the fourth one, replace the first one, and so on. So, if a mistake or something happened to the database, you can always go back to a backup, and don't worry about it. You can actually put 0 if you don't want no backups to be done. These are, say, external applications location. For example, for fingerprint scanner, we add one by default. We include one by default, but we'll explain that a little bit more in future videos. This one I can save whatever options, the current settings as a new template, so that when you go and you create like a new database, you could use that as a type of default template. So, for example, if I want to save this one as a demo, I can go and say I want to save it, and put the name of it as demo. You find out the location where you should be saving it, which we'll explain later on. But you can save it also on a USB or external drive, and you can also load settings from another database that you already created, and you want to copy just the settings, not the data, but just the settings. These are the preview type, the rendering type, and I'll explain for the section of what is that. We can't right now see sample because we don't have any design loaded, but we will create some quick design sample so that you can see what it does. When you save an image how you want it bigger, you want it smaller, you want it normal on the database, that's because we include and save the images in the database. You could also have a signature pad connected to your computer, and you can launch an executable file linking and executing along with the application. So far, let's just go back and say, this picture fingerprint. Let's say that I want a fingerprint enable. I'm gonna hit OK. When you go to add record, you're gonna see now there is picture, fingerprint, and signature. If I only want the picture and not the fingerprint or signature, I can go back, quickly configure, OK, other, and just disable these two. When I come back into add record, they're not there. It's only picture. When you click on picture, this is an actual button. You can load a picture from the disk. You can acquire from either a twin device, webcam, if you want to, or just load from an image file. You can, if you want to, after you load an image, if you want to change properties or sizes, or this is the cropping tool. to which area, and it's always stay the size and the position where you left it last time. Uh, Let me import an image from the local drive. Let's say that I want to open this image. It has the auto face locating. Find a face. That's how I say no face located. It couldn't auto detect it. But for most regular images, it probably didn't detect it. The AI needs to be a bit upgraded. Um, but let's say that that's what I want. I can click OK, and this one is a PNG. Uh, Now, because I remove also the background, when you click on it, it says remove background. It's a threshold, but this image was a PNG. You can right click the image to access the filters. So if you want to, for example, flip it, mirror, you know, you want to rotate, you can actually go and make the rotation, but you could also have a center point. By default, this tells you, for you to align the eyes or to align the nose or something like that. You can actually um, find out where center points are. You right click, you can make it sharper. You can create a grayscale, inverted, RGB, just filters. This is brightness, contrast, saturation, hue modifier, or you can reset whatever selection you made. But let's say that I want this in by any chance grayscale, then I can just go and click here. Um, I can go back and just reset the entire selection area. Uh, I'm gonna hit cancel because it's okay how it was. Let's say that I want to call her Mary Smith, and she is in administration, let's say. The comments field, which you can rename or enable and disable on the configure panel, allows you to enter information that not necessarily is going to be utilized on printing, but that you want to have it on the record. I don't know, let's say parking access granted, whatever you want to add that is not specifically. But if you want to add something for parking, you can create a field, add a field, and force it to be granted, not granted, or something like that. This is the final one that is designed, and when you select the design here, it's on the list. You're gonna see a preview of the front side, back side, and this is just an identifier of the uh, database. If you want to change something, for example, if you were working with different departments or different companies or uh, anything, you can change the name here so that you can identify quickly the database that you're working on. So let's say that, for example, I want to change this to a company name. um, I could either bring their logo or um, or you know just simply put a text if I want to. Right now I'm just gonna save this record. So I save it. The record has been added, and it is on my database. If you see, it says one record. So that's what I have there. I'm gonna go to configure advanced settings, and I'm gonna change that part where it says ECidStation. So I want to have a, you know, let's say text. You can actually have a color for the background. Change and say I want it this color, and I want to say this is gonna be XYZ company. Let's say. You can change the font color, font size. So I'm just gonna go here and I'm gonna say I want it to be white. And I'm just taking one of the, yeah, let's say this, and let's put it something big. It's just an identifier. When I hit OK, now when I go to add record or open a record, you can see that this is here. Okay, so now let's talk about designs. Designs are basically utilizing whatever you have active in your database. That's what is going to show up. So I usually recommend to design your database first. You know what records, what fields you want on your uh, on your design, or want to keep on your database, and then from there you later on go into designs or something like that. Now, don't be afraid, because you can add an extra field after something has been done or something like that, but it will be easier, if you have the default uh, layout or something like that that you want to have on your database. So let's close this record and continue in our next video.